Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Onemicnite podcast. It's me, your host, Marcos Luis. I'm back with season 3, and I want to thank everybody for joining me for the last 2 seasons. It's been incredible. We've had some incredible guests, and today is no exception. But first, before we do that, I want to make sure you drop down right now, subscribe, like the episode, follow us on the social media. You know what it is. It's Onemicnite. Onemicnite is spelled Onemicnite. You can listen to the audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor FM, whatever your heart desires. You can also view the podcast on YouTube at Onemicnite. Now, my guest today is amazing. And I have to read this one because there's so many credits behind it. You just won't believe it. He is a composer. His name is Jonathan Bingham. He's been recognized for his electronic and acoustic instrumentation. He's composed music for films, advertisements, and he's received commissions to write for numerous ensembles. He received the Vincent C. LaGuardia Award in composition, leading to a residency with the Arapahoe Philharmonic in 2016. Through his collaborations with filmmakers, dancers, and painters, his work has premiered internationally in concert halls, cinemas, galleries, and playhouses. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to learn a lot more about him in just a minute. So please welcome Jonathan to Onemicnite podcast. Jonathan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I know you got a busy schedule, so I appreciate your time. Listen, I have questions. The first question is, who is Jonathan Bingham?
Well, I mean, you summed it up. I just label myself as a composer. I don't like to put myself into the classical realm or any other genre just right off the bat. I think a composer, to me, they should be taking responsibility to enter as many genres as possible. Classical is definitely my background. That's like, your home state, so to say, but there's nothing wrong with going out into cinema. There's nothing wrong with going out into pop music and finding out how you can service those areas with what you know. So I'm doing my best. I'm trying to figure out, where this composition path is going to take me. It's taken me some great places so far. I've worked with so many great people. So as of right now, I'm just gonna keep it at composer.
All right. So I want to do something. What is a composer? I mean, can we get the definition of a composer?
Yeah.
So everybody knows.
Yeah. I mean, my definition, or at least my perspective on it, is someone who can build music in a structural way. So, for instance, most composers, we do notate our music. We'll go through some sort of Western music theory training. We'll learn how to put the treble clef and all that. I don't want to make that sound like that's vital for what a composer is. I'm just saying my background. But my training has really dealt with expanding and building musical ideas. So, for instance, it could be a melody. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, right? Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star is less than a 2-minute song, or at least as we know it is. But a composer, they should be able to come in and be able to expand that to where it could still make musical sense to an audience, being a 10-minute piece, a 20-minute piece. In some cases, you'll have composers who might just repeat it over and over, note for note. And then there are other composers who might want to come in and they will add different voices. Instead of just hearing the one Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star line, there might be 4 people singing it. And, we might come in at different entrances. And, that's what we call counterpoint, where we have 2 different melodies or 3 different melodies or more going on simultaneously. And that's just, one of many techniques that composers can take and to build a song, build a piece, what have you.
So I'll ask you, when I think of a composer, you usually hear the word and it's always associated with classical music. But like you said, a composer is not necessarily a classical arranger. It's everything. I guess they're modern day composers as well. Is that synonymous with being a songwriter? I mean, can you interchange the two?
I think that the technical way is, or the technical answer is yes. I do consider songwriters composers. I mean, there's really only a cognitive response, that people have kind of grown up with to distinguish songwriters and composers. But really, if you were to speak to someone, they would be able to say like, hey, well, songwriters do this as well. And a composer would be able to say that, well, composers do what songwriters do. So it is pretty interchangeable. What's the real difference is that we're just dealing with different time periods, different cultures. I would say the only technical difference is that songwriters only deal with words. Technically, when we're making music in classical music, let's say, without words, it's known as a piece, and a song is a musical composition with words. So that's the only difference. But of course, composers throughout time have made songs, and songwriters, I'm sure, have made songs or pieces. They just didn't put words in them. They just chose to utilize the instrumental behind, and that's it. So of course, this is coming from me, and there's probably some music theorist out there who might be saying that this is all wrong, but I'd have to disagree. I mean, it's just when you look at the output of the art itself, we have more in common than anything else.
Okay. How'd you get started doing this? Have you been doing music all your life?
No, not at all. In fact, I do not have the traditional background of a composer or even a songwriter, for that matter. I do not come from a musical family. I just had an interest in popular culture music. When I was in high school, I wanted to do what Quincy Jones had done for Michael Jackson, or what Rick Rubin had done for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or what Pharrell has done for Jay-Z or whoever else that you could think of. I wanted that to be my role, and that's what I looked at. The role of a music producer, it should be known that you are in many ways a musicologist or a music historian, and you know a lot more than just the genre that you're known for working in. I could bet that Pharrell could have a conversation about any genre of music, even though he might be known for one or two styles. So knowing that, I decided to try to get to know other genres that were further outside of what I grew up with. And the first thing I thought of was classical music, because I just knew nothing about it. The people in my circle knew nothing about it. And to prove that I knew nothing about it, the first thing that I thought of when I thought of classical music was film scores. So instead of actually going to listen to Beethoven or whatever, I chose John Williams and the soundtrack to Star Wars. And getting to know that, and just trying to understand how one person could write for all the instruments and they blend together. And I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what, I think I could do this. I think that if I could just learn how to orchestrate, I could write a melody, and I could build a background, let's say, that's my thinking at the time, a background for that melody to support it. And from that point on, I just started studying composition.
Okay. So how did it start out for you? Like when you were small, first of all, where were you born?
I was born in Willingboro, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Philly.
Okay.
But I grew up in a town a little further away from Philly, Southampton, New Jersey.
Were your parents, did they push you towards anything? Did they have expectations for you to be a doctor or a lawyer or any of those things? Or, I mean, of course they did, but how did it all come about that you?
No, my parents, they seemed like they wanted me to find what I wanted to do. So that being said, they put me in piano lessons just to kind of see, do you like it? Let us know. And if you don't like it, it's okay. We'll move you to something else, which is what happened. I was involved in sports. I did piano as a kid. I did trumpet as a kid. I did drums as the kid. And, you know, I switched up so many times. I mean, I throughout my childhood, I wanted to be a professional athlete. I think all of us did at one point.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
I wanted to get into engineering. I wanted to get into forensic science. Probably all of us wanted to do that, watching CSI and all that, because that's where I got the idea. But many things. I even wanted to be a high school teacher, you know, because you know, being influenced by my high school teachers.
Right.
So to your question, it was different things at different times.
When did you find out that music was what you wanted to do? Because I, like you, I started out playing, you know, in the jazz band. I actually started out playing flute first. Then I switched to clarinet. Then I went to saxophone, alto sax, tenor sax, bass, you know, so the whole gamut. So when was it that you kind of found that music was I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want to do.
It was 2 points. There was the point where I knew I wanted to be in pop music. As first I wanted to be a rapper. This is early high school, and you know, I just felt that I had the potential. You know, like the funny thing is, you know,
did you have a rap name?
Did
you have a rap name? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said a rap name?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had
like
a few.
Little Fresh J or something like that, you know?
No, you know what? I had a few. So one of them was 5 Star. What was another one? Another one was GJ. I took my middle initial, G, and I put it in front of my first initial. The reason I did that was because I went to a predominantly white school, and my initials, JB, were also the initials for a racial slur that would sometimes get in the mouths of kids who wanted to be smart for a bit. You know. Let's
talk about that for a minute. Is that So how was that for you? Was that high school, or was that just throughout your
That was the whole time. The whole time up until the end of high school.
Was it a private school? Was it?
It started off as a private school up until 3rd grade, I think, and then it went public.
Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of had the same experience too. Yeah, I went to a private school, sort of same thing. So, yeah, did you go through a period where you sort of had to find yourself and kind of find what you wanted to do along with it?
Yeah, I think so. Although I wouldn't have put it in those words at the time. You know, when you're finding yourself, you don't think that you're finding or searching for yourself.
Right.
But yeah, I was experimenting with different clothing, trying to find out what was acceptable at the time, especially for Black people. How could Black people be accepted? And I went with what I saw, what the cool, quote unquote, Black people of the time were doing. And I dressed like them. Allen Iverson, I loved Iverson, the braid and the tattoos and the throwback jerseys, that's what we were doing back then,
Right, yeah.
But the funny thing is, it just, like, my family wasn't doing that. They were just, allowing me to experiment and find myself. And that's what I did. High school is the time to do it, because all of us can look back and think, why was I wearing that or something, but again, Air Force Ones, the chains, I had the chains and the charms and the spinners, I had all that. So the only thing I didn't have was the tattoos,
okay,
and the earrings. My parents wouldn't let me get earrings.
Right. So in the midst of all that is probably how you started to find, different genres of music you listen to too, because being in that environment, as I did, I was listening to rock. I was listening to, pop music. I was listening to soul at home. I was listening to Latin music. I was listening to all these different music because of where I was there, because of my friends being exposed to that sort of thing that they like and I like, and then trying to find out who I am in the midst of it all. Did that kind of happen to you too?
Yeah, I would say that, to what you were saying about rock, I know that some of my friends, like I said, predominantly white school, they were into Red Hot Chili Peppers, AC/DC. I was trying to do what I thought I should be doing. I thought I needed to be listening to G-Unit, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, Juvenile, Birdman, and some of that was accepted in the school, and some of it was kind of pushed aside. And they said, no, you should really try out this, which is a blessing and a curse, because I was getting introduced to something new.
Right.
The Red Hot Chili Peppers, I'm still a fan.
I am too. Me too. Yeah.
It's great stuff, and I probably wouldn't have learned about it had I not been in a predominantly white school.
Exactly. Yeah.
I kept it with me. It all kind of formulated into what my musical taste would end up being. But the second part to your question of when did I know, is while in high school, I took a music technology class, and we were tasked with making music to silent films. And although it was cheap MIDI sounds, we still had fun with it. But it was the first time.
What do you mean by MIDI?
MIDI is it stands for musical instrument digital interface.
Okay.
They're like the electronic sound. So let's say you see trumpet listed. It's not an actual trumpet.
Right.
It's that cheap cheesy sound that it's like
Gotcha,
stuff like that. So
I never knew what it was called. Okay, now I know what it is. Yeah, that's interesting.
That's what it is.
Okay.
And we had, mind you, like I said, this is before 2010. So the technology hadn't evolved yet to where you could have good sounding MIDI. All these sounded very cheap. But that's what we had. And it was the first activity that I had ever done that transfixed me. It was something that made time just become irrelevant. It was a 42-minute class, and I remember that because when I would sit down and I would hear the bell, then there would be a second bell, like the late bell.
Right.
And when that second bell hit, I thought, okay, I can continue writing. But that second bell for me, I never heard the first second bell. So when I heard the bell, it was actually the one to let us know class was over.
Oh, wow.
So within that 2-minute time period, 42 minutes had gone by, and, but in my mind, it was only 2 minutes. It was the first time I had felt that while imposing. So that's when I knew that this is probably...
That's where the passion started. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. So once you went there, that was high school, grade school. Where'd you go to college?
Well, on my mind was still popular music.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I had gone through, that transfixing period with writing music to films, I still wanted to go and be a producer. So I started studying music tech at Norfolk State University.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 semesters in, that's when I decided to start listening to, quote, classical music, which was really film score. But cognitively, I'm thinking, it's classical music. But yeah, 3 semesters in, started listening to John Williams, and then made the transfer to Howard so that I could start studying music composition.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Norfolk State, at least at the time, did not offer an undergraduate curriculum in composition. They had music ed and they had music tech. So when I knew that I wanted to study composition, I knew that a transfer was about to happen.
So at Howard, the music composition class, did focus on a specific genre, or it was just a sort of a general music composition? It teaches you how to compose the music, and did they use classical music as the basis, or how was that program?
It was a specific genre, and that's one of the things that my academic advisor let me know before transferring in. Mm-hmm. He said, hey, like this, we're not doing songwriting, we're not making beats, we are writing European Western classical music
Wow.
based out of the 20th century. You know,
Okay.
like he was just, you know, putting it out there. That's what we're going to be looking at. That's what we're going to be studying. Of course, that doesn't mean that that's what I have to end up doing with my life.
Right.
It's just, this is what the curriculum is. This is going to be your foundation. And afterwards, you know, of course, go on, be you. But you're going to get this foundation, this type of training here.
Wow. That's amazing. I had no idea Howard offered that.
Oh yeah, it's
shout out to Howard.
It was something that was thriving more so in the 1900s,
Mm-hmm.
and at some point in the late 1900s, it did dissolve a bit, but then came back around the time that I enrolled.
Okay. So once you graduated Howard, where did you go? Where did the path take
After
you?
Howard, I moved back home, and I knew that I wanted to go to graduate school, but you know, my advisor and my private teacher in composition, same gentleman that I was just speaking of, he was honest and thought that if I really wanted to go to a top-notch graduate school, I was gonna have to take some time off and write some more music, because my portfolio at the time just wasn't up to par with all the people who were applying to Juilliard or New England Conservatory or UCLA. He knew that it was a competitive process, so he wanted me to have an orchestral work, which I didn't have at the time. He wanted me to enroll in other summer programs to kind of build my resume up, so that I wouldn't just say Howard University and I wrote this while at Howard. It was Howard University. I studied in Siena, Italy. I also studied with the University of Nebraska for a summer program. I also wrote this piece for an orchestra, right, and whatnot, because those are the types of elements that you need on a composer's resume if you're planning on applying to one of the top-notch schools.
That's right. That's what they're looking for. Yeah. For sure.
Right. So.
Who was your mentor there? Do you want to give a shout out to him? Because
yeah, absolutely. It was Anthony Randolph, Dr. Anthony Randolph, who still teaches composition there. Okay. So yeah, shout out to Dr. Randolph. And another thank you. I say thank you to him all the time just for taking me on.
We have to. That's one thing that I've learned in life, is you always give a shout out to your teachers, because those are the people who have put you in the place that you are right now. And shout out to Ann Woodworth, my teacher from Northwestern University, who just retired last year. Thank you. Thank you.
I hear you. Yeah. I'll throw in shout out to Dr. Ohia, who was he's another composer at Howard. And Dr. Norris, who used to teach music history at Howard, but did retire a few years ago. He's been a great resource for me.
Let it be known. Let it be known. These people cannot be forgotten. So I want to talk about, you have something in the works right now. First of all, where are you located right now?
Currently in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, right? What are you doing in San Francisco?
So during the time of summer of 2020, there was of course, throughout America, we started looking at race as being part of our conversations again, more so than what they had been in the past decade. Mm-hmm. So that being said, the classical music community was no different, and there were a number of initiatives that came about. One of them was the Emerging Black Composers Project, which was thrown in collaboration by the San Francisco Symphony and the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. And I applied. It was just a call for scores in a composition competition type fashion. And I became one of the finalists. They selected 4 finalists. Top prize went to Trevor Weston, who teaches at Drew University. He will be commissioned to write for the San Francisco Symphony, and the other finalists, which included me, will be either writing for the National Brass Ensemble or the San Francisco Conservatory of Music Orchestra, or the Oakland Symphony. So my task is to write for the National Brass Ensemble.
Wow! Congratulations to that. This just makes me proud, because this is something that in our community we don't hear about a lot. You know what I mean? So it's inspiring to me to hear that we have, you know, been able to thrive a little bit, like knock down some doors. We're being presented to the world to show our skills and our ability. And congratulations to all of them, and congratulations to you for even doing what you do and making it this far.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
you know, kind of thinking back to high school a bit. One thing that I really did want while I was in high school, I did want to see people that looked like me just outside of the stereotype. You know?
Yeah.
It didn't really matter where.
Right.
I just wanted to show the rest of the country that, Black people, Black culture, it was not a monolith.
Say it. That's it.
So that being said, so yeah, this is part of that. This is building on that. And as we move into the 21st century, I'm hoping that, this really makes a difference in the history books.
It does. It's already made a difference. What are you working on right now?
So it is the National Brass Ensemble piece.
Okay.
Usually, at least in the past, I've taken on maybe a few projects at a time. But for this piece, I felt that I wanted to give all of my attention into this particular piece. I wanted to live in the city and write it in the city of its facilitators. So I never thought I would live in San Francisco. I'm from the East Coast. We have New York, and that suffices.
Number one, yeah.
Right.
At least that's what we think.
Yeah, and I lived in New York, and I thought that I'd be there for the rest of my life. But this was just a different call. So when I got it, I was like, you know what? Let me write it out here. I don't know if I'll be here for the rest of the decade or the rest of my life, but my goal is to be here to write the entire piece here, and to have it. We will be recording it here, and it's going to be premiered here as well.
I love that. Congratulations on that. That's great.
Thank you.
Now, is that in conjunction with the other thing that you're doing? You're doing something for Cool Stories. Yeah.
Yeah, Cool Story is a record label that I've launched.
Okay.
And thank you for asking about that.
Yeah, of course.
Because that is my own personal project. Cool Story is making a platform for some of the composers that we just may not have heard of in the past, but music that has been with us the entire time. One composer that I'm really focusing on is Mark Fax, who was the chair of the Howard University Music Department and was a teacher in composition there up until 1974, I believe it is, when he died. But he had music that just went unpublished. It sat in his office after his death. There was a custodian who threw out his sheet music. And just by chance, one of the colleagues that I believe the next department chair, he walked by the trash can and noticed what was in there, and he took the scores out, and thankfully they were saved. Wow. So up until, or between now and then, they've either been put into the Georgetown University Library, from my understanding, or they've just been sitting with the Fax family. And there was one string quartet that I heard while at Howard. I believe that was the first and only performance of it. I thought it was a great piece. I had the recording on my computer for the following 10 years. And I thought to myself, I would want to be the one to put this on a platform to where other people can hear it as well. So Cool Story Records will be producing the first album from Mark Fax, or at least his music, and as well as his students, Adolphus Hailstork, who has a pretty, his name's been circulating in the classical community lately, which is great, and Dorothy Redmore as well.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. How are you supporting this?
So I've received donations from friends, family. I made the website coolstoryrecords.com where people can donate and thank you to everyone who has donated up until now. We are going to be moving on with the recording in the spring. So I'm very happy to say that, because we've been raising money. I made the website in the summer. So this time, all the way up until, it's just been a little bit of money coming in every once in a while, people who just wanted to support, and I'm grateful for it.
Well, that sounds good. I hope the people listening right now will support you on this effort, because I know I definitely will.
Oh, well, thank you. And let me add that I'm also taking 100% of the proceeds of sales purchases of my music, and it's going directly into the recording. My music is on sale on my website, jonathan-bingham.com, and I've had a few purchases this week, which is great. And like I said, all of that money will be going into financing this album.
I love it. Passion project.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about your music. First of all, I want to. So, when we're listening to music, first of all, how do you even come up with a piece? Because, just say a regular layperson listens to music. We listen to music. You don't really think about how it's composed. We just know, like, the melody, what makes us move. If you're listening to pop music or anything like that, how do you take, a flute, an oboe, a trumpet, a violin, everything in your head, and structure it in a way that is moving, or that will fit a piece, a piece of art or a movie score? As a filmmaker, I know what, if I'm making, a film and I have a scene and I know I need music, I know from listening if this music goes with that. But how do you come up with that music?
Well, keep in mind that, my take is going to be different from every composer, of course. I will say that I look at composition as a craft in a way. There are some people who romanticize it a bit more. They're influenced by the sun rising, or fell in love, or what have you. And then they start whistling a melody, they write it down, and then there it is. For me, I've looked at a lot of music over the years, just listening to it and getting the score and just reading along. And when the horns did something that I liked, I would go to that section and find out how it's notated. And that, just doing that over the course of the years with the horns, with the flutes, with the strings, learning the difference in sound between a violin, a viola, and a cello, because they can all play middle C, right, but it's going to be a different timbre. So, to your question, I feel that in many cases, composition it's like this giant game of telephone. When you whisper to someone and they whisper that same phrase, and then you get something completely different by the end of the line. I'm just one person in that lineage. So I've looked at a number of people. So in this case, it's more like I'm playing 3 games of telephone at the same time, getting different messages, and then all of a sudden I'm in a way making my own message out of it. So my work and my training as well, which again is different for every composer in their path, depending on who they study with. We work at taking small ideas and just expanding it. I remember my teacher, he was always telling me that I moved on too quickly to the next section. Just take this one little idea and you could turn that into the whole piece, 10 minutes, just this one little thing. So that's the craftsmanship that I'm really talking about, just being able to have that patience and, expand what you can.
So I guess that, along with maybe a parallel to someone doing music, beats for pop or hip hop or something like that, I guess maybe what you're saying is, okay, you start off with, okay, how do I want this music to sound? Oh, okay, I know I want a flute. So you add the flute in. How do you want the flute to sound? Is this going to be, fast, what the beat is, what the beat per minute's going to be? like taking all the elements and adding them in slowly to produce the sound or the feeling that you need. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, absolutely. I love that you mentioned, making beats, because I think, again, it has more in common with composing than anything different about it. It's about building something. You can't just take, A and B and put them together and expect them to sound great. Again, it's craft. It's skill that has to be developed over time. It takes practice. It's best if you have a mentor. It's best that if you listen to music within and outside of the genre that you're writing in. So yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it.
What do you say to anyone who, didn't know about what you're doing to be a composer? Any person of color who had no idea that this was even possible? Where would they start? Where do they begin?
Well, first of all, to be honest, not to sound discouraging, but I don't recommend that anyone take on this path unless that's what they really want to do. Unless they find some sort of purpose or some sort of meaning in it. And the reason why is that when you consider what classical music is in our community, what the arts are in our community, there's definitely going to be about 10 years before the point where you decide to do it, and then the point where you find success, or at least to the point where you can start taking care of yourself with it. And for some people it's 15 years, and some people it's 20 years, 30 years.
That's with almost any artist though. Exactly. I mean, definitely your field, but any artist. There's no overnight success.
Absolutely. Yeah. And during that time of waiting, there's going to be, as an artist, you're going to be prone to loneliness, heartbreak, failure, addictions, depressions, at least two of those. Everyone has gone through at least two of those, every artist that is. And to keep yourself going, you need that guiding purpose again of why you feel that it's important to do. So if you don't have that, and if you're just looking at it as a hobby, then treat it as a hobby and be the best that you can at it, but don't expect it to take care of you in any sort of way. This is just for fun, and I support that, and we need that as well. But for those who want to turn it in, to step onto the world stage with it, you just have to have that guiding light within you. So that's my recommendation. You can absolutely do it. I endorse anyone who wants to do it. But like I said, it's best if you can say that this is a call on my life to do it.
There you have it. I think we need to leave them with that, because purpose is the biggest thing that, any artist can pursue. If you don't have your purpose, if it's not what you're meant to do, you don't have the passion, the drive, the love for it, it's not worth doing. Absolutely, it's not worth doing.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jonathan, I want to thank you for spending some time and enlightening everybody with what you do, and I wish you much success. Please come back, once this thing all breaks down, and let us know how it went. I'll be looking for you. I'll be supporting you. Once again, tell everybody what the website is so we can support you.
To support, you could visit coolstoryrecords.com. You can listen to my music and purchase my music at my own website, which is jonathan-bingham.com. Or you could type in, to make it easier, coolstorymusic.com, and that'll lead you straight to my website. Coolstorymusic.com is mine. Coolstoryrecords.com is the record label.
Gotcha. And if we need to reach you direct, can we send you an email or?
Of course, yeah. You can send an email through my website.
Through the website, okay.
Yeah. That's the best way. And of course, social media, my name at John Bingham, just without the A at the end, because someone took it. I got to work with JONBINGHM.
Got to work with what you got. You got to grab that name on social media before somebody else grabs it.
I know. You know what? When I got into social media, I thought this was going to be another MySpace. So I didn't even bother, you know. So I'm late. I'm late
too, but I mean, I managed to grab mine. Somebody grabbed a couple of them, but you know, my name is very common.
No, I hear you.
Once again, I want to thank you for spending some time and enlightening us with that whole process and your journey, and I wish you much success. Everyone, please make sure you go to coolstory.com. Check him out, John Bingham on
coolstoryrecords.com.
Records.com, excuse me.
And coolstorymusic.com.
And coolstorymusic.com. Buy his music. 100% of the proceeds go to help fund this project. And enjoy. It's something that's beautiful. I've been listening to it. It keeps me calm and keeps me sane. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Everyone, please make sure you like this episode, subscribe, follow us on social media at Onemicnite. Onemicnite, once again, is spelled Onemicnite. You can follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis. Drop me a line, hit me on Instagram, let me know what you think. Also, as you can see, the Onemicnite merchandise is coming. This is the prototype, so please check back. Onemicnite Podcast, always 16 years supporting independent artists. That's what I do at Onemicnite. Thank you for joining me for this episode, season 3. Until next time, we're out.